Okay, so welcome back. I've seen a tremendous amount of networking, engagement with new people. I think the bell ringers helped us out with that. And lots of interest in sponsors. I notice as well that some of you are new friends and some of you have known each other for a long time. So wherever you fall, it's a great opportunity to reconnect and catch up and share some insights. So speaking of insights, we do have an absolutely fantastic panel. I am very excited about this because the panel is determined to be really sharp and insightful and controversial. So I'm excited over the next 35 minutes. And of course, we're going to leave some room for your questions at the end. So as we go through this, please continue to ask or come up with questions because I think that really makes it quite conversational rather, and a great experience for everyone involved. So where we're going to start is we've got Martin, Davinder, Lois, and Andrew, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, give you a quick sound bite as to what they're up to. Martin.
Yes, first I'm super happy to be here. It's been 3 years I was in my basement, now I'm going out. So my name is Martin Aubut, I'm CMO for Nesto. Nesto is the #1 digital mortgage lender in Canada. So little background, I've done transformation for L'Oréal, the cosmetics brand, for 8 years. But we transformed for 3 years. After that, we run a business, Cogeco, telco business, and now on the mortgage side. So as you can see, like atypical profile, and now in the financial vertical. So really glad to be here and to exchange with my friends here. Davinder.
Great, thanks. I'm Davinder Singh. I'm the CMO of Borrowell. Borrowell is, we work with financial institutions to help you reach customers more efficiently and effectively. Basically, we have information and data about consumers, and you can target customers to the point of what you want to be able to achieve. From my personal background, prior to being the CMO of Borrowell, I was CMO of Wayfair Canada. I'm sure most of you would have shopped at Wayfair. If you've not, you should try. And then before that, I was at McKinsey, an associate partner in the financial practice. So I've seen marketing consumers across e-commerce and financial institutions, very different customer journeys, but it's the same individuals.
Awesome. My name is Lois Tullo. I'm happy to be here. I am the Chief Financial Risk and Compliance Officer at Kuber Mortgage Investment Corporation. I also have a lot of other part-time jobs. I write with the Global Risk Institute. They're a risk management think tank. I teach risk up at Schulich. I'm a UN executive expert with the GBBC, which is the Global Blockchain Council. Crypto startups since 2016, and it basically all ties together. So I'm looking forward to this.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lowe. Great to be here. It's been a number of years like Martin. I'm finally back at this conference post-COVID. But some of you might know me. I've had a whole career in Fintech and InsurTech and focus on building technologies that change the way that industry works, from mortgages to insurance quoting, to buy now, pay later. And currently I'm the CEO of Embark, and we want to change the way education, savings, and planning is done through digital. So you might have an RESP, right? Registered Education Savings Plan, or you might not, or maybe you haven't heard, but our idea is using technology, we want everyone to know about how to get free money. So that's it.
Fantastic. Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly perked up when I heard free money. So let's come back to that in a minute. So what's interesting about this panel is a couple of things. One, you can see that they have very diverse expertise, right? From technology, marketing, we've got compliance, operations. Many people have founded companies and built out their growth. And so as we think a bit about their backgrounds, the topic today really focuses in around strategies during times of uncertainty. And if you think back a couple of years, chatting with Andrew, and Martin was saying that he hasn't been out as much, probably due to the pandemic, right? If we just think back a few years to where we are today. So we have all witnessed a lot of uncertainty, and there's still, choppy waters ahead. So my question to start us off is, how have you been able to, and what advice would you have for the room around marketing effectiveness while we are navigating turbulence? It could be a turbulent interest rate market. It could be, new compliance or operational changes that we need to address. Who would like to start with that? Martin?
It's because you talk about interest rate, so this resonates to me. So just for fun, who have a mortgage here in the room? All right. Who have to renew a mortgage in the next 6 years? It should be 60% of Canadians, right? So something happening with interest rate. But the good thing is it starts to go down, all right? So everybody, let's celebrate. And if you want a good mortgage at 15% lower than banks, you can come see me after the show. Okay, so basically, I think our uncertainty, you can see I'm a French speaker first, but it's good. So uncertainty, it's always uncertain time when you are in startup world. I guess in business, you never get a simple way of going through. But when you talk about crisis, you always get an opportunity to it. That's how we see things, an entrepreneur. And pretty much on our side, the way we started looking at things would say, okay, our mission is to offer a transparent and engaging and positive experience to all Canadians from start to finish for their mortgage. It was simple as that, and we're thinking, okay, so how we go around it, we start looking at distribution channels. So we focus on this distribution channel, say how we can talk to more Canadians more efficiently. So paid is good, D2C is good, right? So we optimize everything we do, we use AI, we'll chat later on it. First party data, fuel it back to Google, and we kind of we build a moat within our paid. But what was starting to be interesting is the B2B. So without having a pressure, maybe we'll not have developed that much in B2B, but with uncertainty, we had that to push this channel where FAs looking to refer mortgages, and after that, real estate, everybody knows, so we work on the B2B side. After that, we're thinking about how we can touch more consumer, but within our backend. So we developed a B2B solution. It's called Nesto Mortgage Cloud, and we've got some partners here, IG, so we do the mortgages, the back office, and the servicing to FIs, right? So it's some competition, we can call it this way. So we're starting to build this ecosystem where we're able to offer to consumer in the B2C, B2B, and B2B2C, and from inflation from the cost of paid, because we saw 17% increase in paid with Google. So we decided to say, okay, so Meta is winning, Google is winning, it's all the GAFA guys winning from the US. So we say, why not building our own marketplace? So we pretty much think, we look at all the sacred cow that we never have touched, but in terms of uncertainty, you turn every stone and you look at opportunities that you will never have done without this pressure. So now we build comparemortgage.ca, where people can shop for their rates, and we resell some of the leads to our partners, and we sell mortgages too. So we had to redefine our distribution channel to cope with this uncertainty. So that's kind of the way we play. And so far, you are asking results. We top 50 grow in Deloitte Fast 50. So we doubling the results. And we see now that B2B, it's maybe bigger opportunity than we thought in the B2C. So that's kind of the way we planned it.
Excellent. Thank you. Davinder, what are your thoughts? Where do you see turbulence and uncertainty? How is that driving effectiveness in your shop?
Yeah. So the topic of this is strategy in uncertain times. I think one of the main things that I've learned over time is strategy is strategy, whether it's uncertain or certain times. That should never be changing, because you have an approach to how you want to, what is the value prop you want to offer to the consumer, what is it that your product stands for, what does your brand stand for, and how do you want to get to it. So none of that should be changing, whether you're in a certain time or an uncertain time. What should be changing is your type of operational execution. So there's not much I'm going to be able to tell you from a strategy perspective. Fairly, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT, what should be my marketing strategy for a financial institution company today, it's probably going to tell you everything that you summarize from the whole day today. It all actually comes down to operational execution. And that is where a turbulent time or a not so turbulent time matters. I'm also the head of data for Borderwell, and so I kind of think of it in terms of like data and standard deviations. And so if you think of it, it's when you have a normal time with a lot of room for error, you kind of end up running tests or projects that probably are more than 2 standard deviation outside your normal operating rhythm, where you know how things are going to operate, what is going to be the effectiveness if you took action 1, and because you have more margin for error, you kind of start doing strategies that are outside of it. When you end up in a turbulent time, hopefully what you're not doing is changing your strategy. Because if you're changing your strategy because the macro environment changed, there was potentially something fundamentally wrong in your long-term strategy to begin with. And so hopefully what you're doing is you're reducing your standard of deviation and saying, I have low margin of error because my time frame has been cut down. I cannot look to burn cash because it's a difficult funding environment. Investors are now valuing profitability more than growth. And you change all of that to just adjust your margin of error. And so for us, I think from a marketing effectiveness perspective, our North Star has always been the same. We try to be very efficient with our customers. We're constantly focused on payback. And what we're simply doing is changing the operational execution from time to time.
I'm going to come back to that because, but we'll hear from Lois and Andrew first. So I'm going to challenge Davinder on some of those points. So Lois.
Well, a little bit of diversity. So I want you to think about your own strategy and all of the different trends that are happening around the world. And when you think of how do I link my strategy to how those are implemented. So we've got geopolitical change, we've got economic change. So I want you to go down in your strategy to think about what are the underlying assumptions of that strategy for your business. So let's go to before COVID, and you're on a cruise ship and a cruise line strategy, to give good customer service, to increase their footprint. Well, 2 of the underlying strategies were that we're going to dock in the port and we're going to be able to get off the ship. And when you think about the spread of viral disease, pretty hard to link that to your strategy of, increasing 10% or giving good customer service. But when you link it to those underlying assumptions. So I'm in a couple different businesses. One is the mortgage industry. We heard low for long. Low for long, back to my research in 2021 that says we have huge debt. Our debt in Canada went from 250 billion, which drove me crazy, to now 1.3 trillion. Housing starts are at the lowest level that they have ever been. We stopped immigration, then we let in, and I'm all for immigration, I think we need it, but we let 1.2 million people in, and we have nowhere to put them. Why do we have nowhere to put them? Because we had 40 years ago, the federal government downloaded housing to the provincial government. And then 30 years ago, they downloaded it to the municipality that has only a tax base. So when you look at these, where is that driving? Well, that drove our interest rates from like 0.25 up to 5%. Where do we live in the world? Back in 1980, it took 7 years for interest rates to go back down. So those are the things that you've got to think about first. And that doesn't even look at, okay, we've got, how did the breadbasket of Russia and Ukraine change? We've got the war in Israel and Gaza. But that's not my biggest worry. My biggest worry is looking at Taiwan and China. All of the ships and all of the rockets that are just pointed there. And where do all the chips come from? 60% of the chips come in Taiwan. 90% of the high-functioning chips are made in Taiwan. How did Russia waltz into Crimea? That's how it's going to happen in Taiwan. they're just going to waltz in. So I'm going to pass that on.
Well, and I'm just going to jump in for a minute, because what I've heard is just so far, so we, continue the conversation as we get to Andrew. What I heard from Martin was that a crisis really drove your organization into different distribution channels, which are proving to be more successful than you ever anticipated. And Davinder's point is stay true to the strategy. What I'm hearing from Lois is the strategy may actually change depending on your assumptions. And it may be, I think one of your insights is revisit your assumptions. Don't necessarily assume that your strategy will stay the same as we think about how we're going to drive marketing effectiveness. So Andrew, where are you coming in on this? Where are you, I'm not suggesting you have to pick a side,
Yeah.
but what's your perspective in terms of turbulence and marketing effectiveness?
Yeah, it's a huge variety of responses.
Yes,
And
I
so,
know.
Like I through my whole career, I've kind of done it like this. I kind of find a way to listen to the voice of the customer, because macroeconomics are going to always change. Things like AI coming in, or like wars around the world, and so on. That's always going to change. But what is your customer's sentiment around all of this, and how does that affect like what you're doing? And so it is almost impossible to predict, right? And so in all the companies that I've ever been part of, including Embark, we make capturing data from our customers a priority. Data meaning like how do they interact with our brand, how do they interact with our CX, and so on, and measure that all the way through. So, and it's inherent to our platform. So a lot of people I see, when they do digital transformation or build a new site or a new experience, they think about capturing and measuring the performance of that experience as an afterthought. But I always want to build it inherent in the build, right? So we want to build. So every feature that we have is actually attributed to some sort of business case. So we build a new feature, we expect that we'll get this much lift, or we expect we get this much engagement. And we measure to see whether that is successful or not by what our initial assumptions are, right? And then seeing what the conversion rate looks like. So I'm going super granular from strategy, but I think like this kind of data capture really helps forward that thinking, changes in macroeconomic environment, changes in business model, because if we listen to our customer this way all the time, then we'll know how to pivot to their needs, right? And so we can quickly tell like, oh, people can't afford to deposit money into an RESP because, if we look historically, they're depositing $1,500 a year. Now they're doing less than $1,000, and maybe like now, when I saw this recent survey, like more and more people using food banks, it's going to be zero. So how do we change that? So we made our platform more efficient. So instead of depositing money to us, is the free money part. As an incentive to opening an account, we give them money because we're more efficient in their onboarding. And how we engage with them. And we learn all of this from the data and the interaction over the years, and we make use of that. And so, like my chief digital officer, for example, he business case every feature. I expect if I do a new type of ID verification to onboard someone in financial services, I expect to get an additional 10% of people through that part of the funnel. So that's how we work all day, every day, and we have daily dashboards that show all of this stuff.
So what I think is interesting across the panel is how each of you are reacting to a crisis. And what I'm hearing from you is that for the most part, you're actually staying true to either your customer needs, using a crisis to spot new opportunities, or staying true to your strategy. So you're really, I think, proponents of deeply looking at the data, the customer behavior, the strategies, and pushing that forward, always looking around you, of course, for change and uncertainty and so on. One thing that when we got together before this session and shared some insights and background, one thing I was impressed with is how you have been able to navigate the C-suite and really persuade them to invest in marketing and technology and the operations that support it. Because my experience has been working with some large organizations, the likes of large insurers and so on, is it's often difficult to get them to invest. I think one of our speakers, Sid Harth, mentioned that he's at BMO now, and marketing is an easy place to cut. So I'm interested to better understand how you persuade them to continue to support you even during challenging times. So, Andrew, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So for me, my C-suite's the board, and so we have a really diverse boards with like very seasoned bankers to some folks who are more entrepreneurial in nature, and some people with like deep expertise in digital, right? Including a board member who was part of the original team that launched Sonnet. And so to convince them, I business case everything. So one of the ways that we do it is we make sure we have, like, as best as we can, a full attribution model in all of our tactics so that we can understand what the return on our advertising or our digital CX spend looks like. And so that's how I convince them. And then I have a dashboard that goes out every month to this board that shows our progress against our spend, right? Like, how many customers are we onboarding against our spend? How long do we think that it's going to take for this spend to pay back? And of course, in a deposit-based financial, like a fintech company, it's going to be 3 years or so, right, for the payback. And so I model this out and being very transparent. And so as long as it's delivering the results you commit to, they're going to commit to the spend, right? And so, and I make that suggestion to everyone who tries to, and this is one of the things I've worked with my leadership team on, is making sure like they can business case, even a traditional marketing tactic. How do we turn this into something that we can attribute, right? Like, is it a QR code that we can scan so we understand how many leads, conversions we got from even a radio ad, like how do we do this? And so very, very data centric, and being able to attribute all the marketing tactics to like a return on that ad spend or on that digital activity or that software development work. So we do that very, very meticulously.
Excellent. Thank you. I think that's a very practical advice for our room. Davinder, what do you do? How do you navigate this?
Yeah. So as a CMO, I primarily have two responsibilities. One is build an awesome team, and second is establish relationships with the rest of the exec team so that people understand marketing. At Borrowell, I've been super lucky. I have an amazing team and very well and ably led. And so most of my time is actually spent helping the rest of the C-suite understand what marketing is. It's very easy for people to think of marketing as purely what ads you're seeing, or do I see my brand in certain places or others? But as most of you know, that is not marketing. Marketing today has evolved to be something a lot more granular and a lot more detailed in terms of like understanding who the customer is, understanding how the customer behaves across different touch points. So there's a lot more complexity to it, which I would say, through my experience of being a CMO, you probably would have like 10% of CEOs who actually understand and appreciate that. And so the golden rule I've always followed is your two best friends as a CMO are actually your CFO and CEO. You got to invest a tremendous amount of time and energy helping your CFO understand what is the value, as Andrew said, what's the payback, and why it fits into a long-term strategy in terms of the risk that you're going to take. And so for me, it literally comes down to make your CFO your best friend and make sure the CEO understands what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think the idea of partnerships and education, I'm sitting with a group of folks from IG Wealth, and we were chatting about that as well. Whether you're in a newer organization like Borrowell or one that has a legacy, you still need that idea of education and partnerships. Yeah, Lois, how about yourself?
Well, at Cuber, one of the reasons I joined is I came on, I did compliance for 4 months before I put my name on as an officer of the company. We are totally automated from front to back. The founders of the company were 2 engineers. And really looking at every facet as part of your marketing. We have mortgages coming in through brokers. We only approve 1 in 20 mortgages. We've got more mortgages than we can put out the door. how we make sure that we market to our preferred shareholders is to make sure that we are doing a great job at the front. We adjudicate, we stress test before we add them on. We give 1-year mortgages. Our average book is 6 months. We have a plan to roll them out to a credit union or a B lender, and that gives us a 3-year return of 10%, 10.7 with DRIP, 8% 1 year, and we continually go back to our owners with those results so that 60% of them are in DRIP. So by keeping our current platform, and you've heard, it's easier to get, another investment from your current, and then they tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and the story that we get out is of that. So marketing is embedded in the entire process.
Thank you. Martin?
Yes, I'll go the insights here. I think if your marketing program is really aligned with your organization objectives and vision and mission, it's easier to go through the exec and the board. So on our side, that was clear that we wanted to reach profitability at origination, right? And fast, it was growth at profitable growth. I guess it's easy to say, but hard to do. So once this is clear, all the organization have to focus and go to this direction. And on our side, we rebuilt a unit economics to make sure it fits with this logic. And the CAC was kind of a key place to win, and LTV to CAC. So don't go to too much KPI. Sometimes we want to show marketers that we're so good and we control our stuff. But make sure you have 3 things that they understand super well, the finance guy and all the people around the organization, and just deliver on it, and being super able to show ROI of it and the action that make it happen. And from that, you show hockey stick, more hockey stick, C-levels are happy, more trust, and you're able to play more flexible. So have the right unit economics fit with your objectives, making sure that you have 3 KPIs that matters, you work with your team, you mobilize the team with that, it's super clear, and you deliver on it, and you do bold move, you bring back to the exec, bold move work, build trust, and this is where I guess it's working better in our organization. It's all about trust.
Fantastic. What I appreciate is that the panel have deep roots in technology, and that's certainly similar to some of the organizations in the room, but we also have some legacy organizations in the room. And what's interesting is your advice works for both, which I appreciate, right? Whether you've been with the company you're with has a legacy platform, or if you have the opportunity to invest in technology, advice around data, testing, improving, influencing people. These are things that I'd say they're universal lessons that we can apply. So speaking of applying things, I would like you to think about organizations that you're with today, and of course, organizations where you've been in the past. And if you could think about something that has been a real game changer, could be technology related or not, in your career as it relates to marketing effectiveness, what would you share with the audience and help them understand how they could take that forward? How could they take that back to their organization? So a real game changer in your career. So let me start with, what would that be for you?
Yeah, I'll not call it a game changer, but I'll call it a recent new way of thinking. So I'm constantly believing you just got to keep learning from your environment. But when I started marketing, I have a very data-driven background, and I'm an interesting marketer. I'm as much a data scientist as I'm a marketer, and so attribution entirely fascinated me. I've built in-house attribution at Wayfair. We have done incremental data-driven attribution, which means we would actually try to estimate with every click that you were making on the website, what was the likelihood of what drove that click and how that click would. So, I mean, umpteenth level of complexity that you can think of that you can drive from data in a world where Facebook was willing to share a lot of data. The world has changed now, and there's a lot more controls in terms of the way data goes. So my core bread and butter was you can actually try to attribute everything, including brand marketing. I think that's changed for me now. So in the last 1 year, or 1 year plus, I've more adopted this thought that when it comes to doing upper funnel activities, so whether it's brand or any other form of upper funnel activity, you kind of got to strike the combination of really clean attribution, which is giving you an indication of where stuff is going, but you cannot restrict yourself because you're not able to make it a perfect attribution. So there's a bit of like just being a bit more outcome driven and trying to make it a bit more of an art than a perfect science that I probably thought of it when I was a bit in my earlier days. I think I've now come to a point where I look for a healthier balance between how much of the upper funnel activities are more an art based and how does it combine with the science. So that to me is like the game changer.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that for sure. Martin, what would be
Yeah.
a game changer for you?
I see that time, so I will go really with a short answer that hopefully you can bring back to your business. So for me, it's a consumer journey map. Okay, so starting with consumer and everything we do to solve a problem. So making sure you bring your people in your company and your consumer to understand what is the pain point across the journey. And you map it super clear. And from that, you will identify your gap. And what is really interesting that changed my life is the integration of the system and the data now. That is much easier to do, right? It's been 25 years in market. So data in BigQuery, in Google Cloud, BigQuery, and after that you can do your AI and trigger your journey. This is kind of simple now to do visit 10 years ago. So technology is there. You build it for your consumer journey optimization. And of course, what it's changing and strike me today, everybody's talking about it, it's AI for sure, because you see things that you will never have seen before. And this is amazing. And after that is how you execute on it.
I just had a bet with somebody from mine who will say the word AI first on our panel, and you won it.
Was that the AI first? Okay, yeah, we had to position, right? Because it's truly changing our day-to-day.
Excellent. Andrew, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think one for me in my career is AI. So I've been dabbling with it since I think 2016. And so the first project I worked on with AI was Google came to me and said, hey, can we pull all of your like insurance quoting data and your customer service data and like use it to like train a TensorFlow, which we did, and it ended up being a big part of their smart bidding platform. So anyone who's using Google paid ads and doing auto bid is that. And so it was hugely successful. We saw like, more productivity in terms of our advertising spend and even a conversion lift of like, around the 20%. By using their AI. And then I ended up like traveling with their group to explain how we made this work in outside of Google. So that's been a game changer. And then I went to work with another startup AI company that looked at like the web behavior and determined whether that person needed an incentive to call us or to engage with our brand. And we were able to issue like gift cards, like here's $20 to call, but not issue to everyone, only the people who were on the fence. And we use AI to determine whether they're on the fence. And then they would give them a $20 gift card. They would call, like, I'll give another 20% more in conversion rate. So, in the coming months, we're going to bring this to Embark for sure. But those are the things that are a huge game changer in marketing. Fantastic.
So unfortunately, we are out of time. We didn't get to get a final comment from Lois, but nor questions from the floor. Now, I would imagine that this group, I don't know if we hit controversy as Davinder suggested we might, but certainly some really interesting opinions and experience, which I think we can all take back to our organizations. And what I would encourage you to do is please network. If our folks, Martin, Davinder, Lois, and Andrew are around, hit them up for some questions, find them on LinkedIn. Absolutely inspiring. So thank you very much. If you can put your hands together for the panel. Thank you very much.